So what's your earliest memories, David, of wielding a racket for real on a squash court?
I remember first memories playing with my father when I was 5 years old at my local squash centre. I have a picture of us on the court playing and him giving me some coaching. And probably 5 is the first memory I really have of playing the sport.
During your amazing career, you've had 3 coaches. It had to start somewhere. The person that took you first of all and developed this maybe precocious young talent, Peter Chard. Tell us a little bit about him, David.
He's been a really big influence on my life, and not only squash, also the type of person I am. I think I first met him when I was like 6 or 7, and my dad took me one day to him just to let him have a look, and he gave me a few pointers. But then it was when I was 11, I went back to him, and that's when I started to play junior tournaments and started to play in the state titles under 13s, and that's when I started to work with him. Dad sort of realised that he'd taken me as far as he probably could, and he thought Peter was the next stage for me to really try to improve me. So I used to travel up to Bathurst, which was like a 45-minute drive, Saturday and Sunday afternoons, play a couple hours with him, give me some pointers and tips, and then I go back home to Lithgow and then play a few times through the week with either mum or dad. And that sort of happened for like a 4 or 5 year period, and then a combination of junior tournaments, and occasionally he would come and watch me play also, and he really took me up, he really improved me as a junior.
Peter Chard was really very instrumental in your early development. Tell me a little bit about those years from 13, 14 through, when you were working with him.
Yeah, I wasn't number 1 back then. I was like 2 or 3 in New South Wales, maybe 4, 5 or 6, somewhere in that period in Australia. I got better and better. On the 15s, I went a little bit further and started to beat better guys. On the 17s, I was sort of number 2 in Australia, and then it wasn't until under 19s that I finally ended up winning the Australian Junior. But Peter definitely improved me. There was 1 or 2 players that I really couldn't beat as a junior, and after working with Peter, I was able to beat these people, and I was getting better and better as I went up the age groups.
We've heard about your junior years, your formative years of development. It had to move on, and Peter Chard had a name in the bag that he wanted to pull out. A character squash coach, a great squash coach, an international squash coach, Joe Shaw. Now, can be controversial, but for you, David, I think he was a bit special. How did you 2 guys get together?
Yeah, he's very special. It's similar to what, like I said before, Dad took me so far, Peter took me to the next stage, and he sort of felt that was about it, and he needed a bit of help. So Joe was a good friend with Peter. They spent time in Papua New Guinea together working years ago, and Peter approached Joe, and I ended up travelling up to Brisbane. My father drove me up there, 1,000 kilometres, to have 4 days with Joe. It's the first time I met him. It was an interesting 4 days. I pretty much walked into the squash centre. He had me on the court within the first 10 minutes, and he wasn't too impressed with what he saw the first time he saw me play. But it was the first time I really met Joe, and that was the game plan. I spent 4 days with Joe. He gave me advice. He criticised me big time. He told me I wasn't strong enough, didn't hit the ball hard enough, wasn't fit enough, but in a nice way.
Joe was and is a great psychologist. He gets into your head. When you first turned up there and you had this bucket of water thrown on you, this shock of Joe Shaw, and being sent off again to work with this incredibly difficult program that he gave you, did you feel he was giving you a test? Did you think this was a Joe Shaw, if this boy's got it, he'll come back? Because, in fairness, that program, Dave, was a tough one for your age.
Yeah, for my age it was tough, but he was positive. He said, like, if you can do this, then come back and see me, and sort of don't come back until you get it done. But I think I believed. I really trusted Peter. Like that, I didn't know Joe so much, so I really trusted my dad and Peter, and they thought it was the right way to go. So obviously, back then I really probably didn't realise he was testing me, but now I sort of realise, obviously, the theories he was probably putting me through.
With Joe being based in Brisbane, 1,000 kilometres away from you, a big stress on your family. Dad having to act as chauffeur, no longer coach. You having to still keep up that desire to work this hard. And when you get there, a pretty uncompromising man waiting for you, Joe Shaw. Was it a tough time, Dave? Because I know you've built great respect for the man. Was it a tough time, or was there a soft side to that relationship between you and Joe?
it was definitely tough at start. Obviously, no one likes to be criticised, and at a young age, it's hard to take sometimes. But I kept sort of plugging away and just kept working hard. And I think after that sort of first 6 month period, I think Joe then realised obviously that I did have some talent, and I did have a good chance to become some type of professional squash player. So back then, wasn't obviously sure how high I could get, but I think we showed him a little bit after that first 6 months that we were serious, and we were serious about doing it. So I think that worked well, and then maybe he eased off a little bit and got to know me a little bit better, and then obviously tried to work out what was the next step for me to go from.
You're talking about the next step. You've already had your first coach 45-minute drive away as a little boy. Your next coach is 1,000 kilometers away. He's tough. And now he talks about sending you off to start your career on the PSA Tour, the Professional Squash Association Tour, where you're going to earn your world ranking points. Where does he send you, David?
He sent me to South America, to Rio. It was a choice I had. He just put it all on the table. It was a tough period. It was when I'd just been chosen to represent Australia in the World Junior Championships, which were held in New Zealand that year. Joe just got back from South America. He was there for over a year as the national coach, and set up a good base over there. And he advised me not to play the World Juniors and to go to South America to train for 4 months and then play 6 tournaments on the tour down there. And it was a tough decision. And in the end, I made the right decision, and I went to South America. First time away from home for that period of time. It was pretty tough. A strange country, different language, by myself. But I think that was the start of my career really there, and I sort of haven't looked back too much since. And I've got no doubt that was the right decision. There's no way I'd be sitting here today if I went to New Zealand instead of going to South America.
Like all Australians, David, who chose the very difficult route of professional squash to earn a living and to compete in, it means you don't have a comfort zone. You have to travel away from Australia. Here you are, a young man, already sent to South America. You perform out there, but you do come back with a world ranking of 90. But more than that, do you feel you came back with a base that was to help you when you had to travel eventually to the Northern Hemisphere to base yourself for this game?
It was a tough 4 months, I must admit. There was a lot of times where I didn't know if I would stick it out, or obviously times when I wanted to come home. But in the end, it worked out well, and I think because I did so well in the tournaments, the 6 tournaments, like I mentioned, came back at 90. I jumped a lot of people that were 5 or 6 years even older than me. So, and the guys that went to New Zealand, I went ahead of them also, and came back and did well in the Australian juniors, and then eventually won the under-19 title the year later. So, in the end, it paid off, and then obviously I think it helped me to prepare for later years when we have to spend 4, 5, 6 months away sometimes from Australia. So yeah, I think you were right. It did sort of build a bit of character in me, and if I couldn't achieve what I did there, then I wasn't going to be able to handle what was thrown at me next, like the full-time touring pro. So it was a good learning experience, and showed me if I wanted to play professionally what I had to do.
As a squash player, there are 2 sides to your career. The one is you're a professional squash player, you earn a living from it, and you chase titles. But there's the other side, the international player who plays for his country. Now, I know how proud you are about playing for Australia. How much of a wrench was it for you to make that decision not to go to the World Juniors, where, in fairness, you would have stood a great chance of taking that title, and instead you chose the other route? How difficult a time was that, and how much trust did you put in Joe, who gave you this suggestion and suggested you took this particular journey?
Yeah, it was an easy decision. Obviously, in the end, Mum and Dad were pretty good. They sort of left it up to me. But I just trusted. I trusted Mum and Dad. I trusted Peter, and I trusted Joe. And they were all saying the same thing. South America was the way to go. And I would have loved any time I play for a team, or even in leagues. I love a team environment, but I wasn't doing it to be disrespectful to any other Australians or any of the other team members or any of the past people that had played for Australia. It was just a personal decision, and one that, in the end, like I said before, that it was the right decision. But not everyone saw it that way at the time. But it's just the way it went, and I was happy with what happened. And in the end, it worked out. I came back with a good ranking. It gave me a base to really start travelling overseas and to get in tournaments that I would never have got in. I was lucky Joe got me into the qualifying in all the tournaments in South America, and I battled through all the qualifying and made a couple of first and second rounds, and I think one semi-final over there, and that's why I came back at 90, and then that got me out of playing all these little $2,000 or $3,000 tournaments and got me in the tens and $20,000 tournaments. So it really gave me a jump start to the tour.
A natural route for any talented young squash player of your era would have been to have gone to the Institute of Sport, where you have the head coach, Jeff Hunt, one of the mighty, mighty names of the game, great player himself, looking after and nurturing these talents. It simply wasn't to be for you, David. Tell us why not.
It was mainly Joe. Joe was such a big influence on me at that time, and I trusted people close to me, my mum and dad, and my other coach, Peter Chard, and I ended up going to the Institute of Sport with the agreement that Joe could still be involved and still be coaching me to a degree, and in the end it just didn't work out. I really had to decide after. I enjoyed my time there. I spent about probably 18 months there, but I was with guys like John White and Anthony Ricketts and Paul Price, but in the end I really had to decide which way I wanted to go, and in the end I just liked what Joe was doing better, and that's why I went with Joe, and I left the Institute, and that's when we first travelled overseas together, and in search of a European base, because Australia was just too far away from everything. So that's the first time we started, and went from there.
To take the story on, you and Joe travel to Europe, you're looking for a base, you're looking for somewhere for you to enter now into the PSA lower levels to start earning your ranking points to finish your trade, to go to the top. Tell us something about that period, because Joe Shaw, real character, a man who can create some waves, a real personality, young boy with a lot of talent, turning up but really very green. How are those couple of months going to be spent in Europe?
It was a big learning experience. Obviously, I travelled before to South America, but by myself. But travelling with Joe, he knows everybody. He's not afraid of anything. He was really on the go for a guy of his age. He's an amazing guy, and he taught me a lot about travelling and preparing for tournaments, and still had me training hard in between tournaments. And we were doing pretty well, and we were looking for a European base in the meantime, and we ended up in Brussels for a week, and in search of a European base, and ended up at a club with some former Australian players, Anthony Hill and Craig Rowland, and ended up meeting a Belgian guy, a particular player, Peter Pastan, and became instant friends with Peter. Got on great with him, played with him, and then one day talking to Peter, told him what we were here for, looking for a base, and he said he knew somewhere in Antwerp. Actually, he thought we would know the guy, Sean Moxham. At that time, I didn't know Sean, but Joe had known him back in Brisbane. Sean grew up in Brisbane and played his juniors throughout Brisbane. So we ended up going up, meeting Sean at the club he was managing, and it just went from there. Sean was looking for a player, I needed a base, and we became friends straight away, and agreed on an agreement to come back and later in the year in September and start playing for the team at his local club. And at that time he wasn't going to coach me. He was going to help me out, maybe get me in a few German league teams or a Dutch league team, but there was no coaching at that time. I would still do my own training, and then we became really good friends after a year. We just really hit it off together, and I think being two Australians away, obviously, but I think there was a special connection between us, and we've been best friends and ever since. So it went well from there.
When you first arrived in Europe, you were with Joe Shaw. Joe is unquestionably something special. Great coach, great character. He's got a talent who he believes in, yourself. How does he feel about releasing this talent, handing him over, and probably expecting him to go to another coach? Because although when you first got there, you would expect it to develop into a Sean Moxham, David Palmer partnership, but it was to go that route. Was Joe jealous or guarded of your relationship, or was he prepared for you to go on another stage?
No, Joe was. He just wanted to take me as far as he could, and he thought back then that, because at that time he was out of the squash scene that much. He's done all his travelling in the past, and spent a lot of time in England and also in Pakistan and other countries. And he thought at that time his main goal was just to find me a base and to set me up, and then he would step aside and always be there for me if I needed help. But he always thought then that my new coach, whoever that might be, would take me over, and he would just step aside. But it just turned out that I did start to work with Sean. After being in about a year or so, we decided that Sean would coach me, and we started to work together 1-2 times a week, and then it grew and grew and ended up being every day a week. But there's been different periods even in my career that I've got to a certain stage, and Joe said to us again, "Yep, okay, I'm done, I'm finished, I'm still here if you want to talk to me, but it's all yours now." Sort of gave Sean the confidence to run. But there's been times when we've had bad periods and we needed some more advice, so we would go back to Joe again, and it's been like that ever since, and it probably will be all my life, I think. He's always going to be there for me, and I'm still learning things from him, and he's still studying, and it's a great combination. And even now Sean's really doing my full-time training, we still refer back to Joe if we ever need any help on things.
Recent history has shown us that the relationship of yourself and Sean Moxham was to prove a monumental one in your career. It really did kickstart the final stages of your preparation. You'd come from Peter Charge, you'd been with Joe Shaw, you'd been prepared, and now you needed to put a challenge in for those top spots. Was Sean more than just a coach? You'd said he's a great friend. For people taking up squash at your level, how much of it is friend, how much of it is mentor? We hear words like guru. How much of that relationship has helped you push that further distance, to go that extra mile?
I think it's had a huge influence on me. At that time when I first started to work with Sean full-time, I was probably around 30 in the world, and we had some really quick success. Went quickly into the top 20, and then started to, instead of losing qualifying of these big Super Series tournaments, I started to make some first rounds and then second rounds, and I really went quickly from sort of like 30 up to 10. So we had a really just sort of click straight away, and he worked on me more on my probably technique and my attacking abilities. Joe really had me one of the fittest guys on my tour and very consistent, but to go that next step, like you just said, I needed to really improve a little bit my technique and more of my attacking ability, and that's where Sean came in and really taught me to be more attacking, to take the ball early and things like that. So I think just the combination again of Joe's, his influence and making me sure that I train hard and be fit and prepared for tournaments, and his mental approach, and then Sean's ability with the racket to teach me how to play better tactics and be smarter on the court, and that's what I needed. And I think when I started to do that, when I started to play, that's when I quickly had better results, and then went into the top 10 and went on from there.
Before you reach the top 10, Dave, there's that period where, with all due respect, there's not a huge amount of money, not enough to take your coach with you everywhere you go. So you're going off to tournaments, you've gone past qualification, you're playing into the main draws, but it's first and second round, it's tough, and it's a lonely existence in some ways. Was Sean just a voice at the other end of the phone for you, and somebody you went back to at the end of the tournaments that could push you on from there?
At the start, yeah, obviously, like you said, I just couldn't afford. I would have loved to have him at every tournament, and even now he doesn't come to all the tournaments with me. But back then it was just coaching and advice before the tournaments, and obviously I'd go away and play and come back, and it was a hard period because he didn't get to see me play that much against the top 20 guys. So it took a little bit of time, obviously, to adjust my game, and he worked. Obviously, he had a lot of experience, a former top 30 player himself, so he knew what he was talking about. So and he grew up with some great players and a great era in Australian squash. So I think that combination of his playing ability and his coaching ability, that really made a difference. And yeah, it was hard. Obviously, I would have liked him to come with me as much as possible, but it just wasn't to be at the start. So it was a bit hard, but eventually I got through to the further into the tournaments, and then occasionally it was one tournament he would come with me, and just went from there.
Your relationship with Sean, I've watched it very closely over the years that you've been on the tour. Apart from the technical side, the work, the preparation, getting your diary right and looking at the tournaments you would play and preparing you to play another player with their skills, I've always felt that Sean gave you something else. I always felt He gave you somewhere to relax, an easy place that took the pressures off you, that knew how to take you away from the extreme competitive edge that comes on with a player in a tournament and teach you to relax between them. Was that the case?
We hit it off straight away. We became great friends, and it didn't change even though when he started to coach me full time. And it was a tough relationship. Obviously, one minute he's my friend, and the next minute he's got to be hard on me and tell me to do this and that and to train harder. And so it would have been a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have worked, but for some reason it just worked very well for us. And like you said, when he was with me at tournaments, we can have a joke and relax together. Even in the training periods, it's never. We know when to be serious and when we can have a bit of fun and joke around. And even today, it's exactly the same. Where some sessions are really serious and some are serious, but they still have that fun factor. So that makes it a lot easier for me to train. So I think that was a big help to me as I've grown these last sort of 3 or 4 years on the tour and got better and better.
For those of us who have been privileged to watch your career from a close standpoint, one of the great moments that I remember was you winning your first British Open. Now, the history of squash has always said that the big titles are the British Open and the World Open and really the world number one spot. Those are the 3 chalices that you boys chase. But that first British Open, David, an Australian, what was it like?
It was great. It was in Birmingham. I think I learned a lot from the year before, actually. I lost in the semi-finals the year before. I did beat Jonathan, which was probably the first big breakthrough that I did make, beating Jonathan in the quarterfinals. But then had
Jonathan Power, of course.
Jonathan Power, and then had a disappointing semi-final loss to David Evans, pretty easy. So it was sort of disappointment from that year that really spurred me on and really gave me the ability and the belief that I could win this tournament. And came back to Birmingham, knew the location. Loved the glass court. It was the new ASB court. It was fantastic. It really suited my game, and everything just went well that week. And got through the first couple of rounds well, and ended up in the semi-final, expecting to play Peter Nicol, but ended up being Lee Beachill. So that was a bonus, and just played well, and then took the. Probably I got a bit nervous in the semi-final the year before and took that experience and really made sure not to waste that opportunity again and to win the final. Obviously didn't expect to play Chris Walker in the final. He had a great run through the qualifying, I think, and beat a lot of top 10 guys to make the final. And even the final, it was a tough match. I probably let the nerves get to me a little bit and got in trouble, got 2-0 down, but then had Sean in my corner again, and we just stuck to the game plan, and eventually things turned. I won the 3rd game and ended up running away with the match quite easy in the end. So to win the first British, always a dream, and at that time that was it. It was fantastic. Don't know what else to say. It was just the moment.
And for you as an Australian, the first Australian to win the British Open since Jeff Hunt. I mean, a huge period of time. That must have really stamped something special on you. Did you take the time to ring Joe Shaw and tell him how things had gone?
Yeah, I was always in touch with Joe. So every time I play a tournament, he's always knows the results. But obviously, there was a special moment. Ring my parents. Back then, it wasn't on TV, so they obviously were waiting for the phone call. So that was obviously special moments, ringing them up to say that I won and things like that. And having Melinda also there, it was great. And having Sean there. It was really one of probably the first tournaments that he really came for the whole tournament from day one till the end. So obviously that helped a lot, and obviously it was a big moment for him too. Being a coach, it's obviously he had dreams of coaching world champions and British Open champions. So it was a special moment for both of us. So which we will never forget.
Just continuing in year 2001, you reached Hong Kong Open, a major tournament, I think the longest running Super Series event on the PSA calendar, one that you guys truly want to win. Not as big as the British Open or the World Open, in fairness, but right up there as a major event. That was to prove quite a tournament for you, because already you're the British Open champion. You've become a main contender at all events. Nobody wants to meet Dave Palmer at this stage. You're a tough guy. Hong Kong, what made it special for you, David?
It ended up being special. It was the first time Joe actually came to a tournament since I left Australia, sort of like 4 or 5 years beforehand.
So Joe's in the audience?
Joe's in the crowd the whole week. It's the first time he's seen me play at this level. He saw me play when I was 20 or 30, but never seen me play when I was in the top 5. So big time. I'm out to impress him, obviously, show him what I can do. And it just sort of, the draw turned in my favourite. Jonathan out first round, I think. Peter Nicol out second round. So the two big guns at that time were gone, and the draw really opened up. And I knew from the second round onwards that if I won the tournament that I would go to number 1 in the world. So that was obviously a bit of pressure to deal with, but I really played probably some of the best squash of my life that week, and with Joe being there was just a bonus for him also, and I'm glad he was there to share in the glory of becoming number 1, because without him, obviously, I don't think I would have ever made it. So it was a great week to win the tournament, to go number 1, and to have Joe in the crowd there with me, and but also, again, for my family and for Sean also, even though they weren't there, they weren't far out of our thoughts at the time, but just really special just again to have Joe there and come off court and give him a hug when I won and stuff like that.
By anybody's standards, 2001 for you had to be a monumental year. You've taken the British Open title, the first Australian to stamp his name on the trophy since Jeff Hunt. You reach Hong Kong, one of the major Super Series events of the tour. You take the title. You do it in style. You do it in the company of the mighty Joe Shaw, a man I know you still respect so much. And with it, David, you take the world number 1 title. So a great year. You move to 2002. Already, it's still with you. Super Series finals, you take it, you win it, and you move on. And for me, what is one of the great milestones of your life was Antwerp, the World Open. Now, I've already said the British Open title and the World Open and the world number 1 are the great ones. You've got 2. You need the 3rd. You get there. In your words, tell us about it, because after 20 years of doing this tour, after doing 170-something majors, and thinking I've possibly seen it all, the final match where you played John White was, for me, the total game of squash. It had everything. It had passion, it had skill, it had 2 great personalities, it had a great crowd, it had a great venue, and it had the biggest title. But I wasn't on the court. I wasn't hitting the ball. What was it like to be Dave Palmer that day?
It's just a special week. Obviously, it's a 64 draw, so it's really sort of like 9 or 10 day tournament. And but being in Belgium, a lot of local
Practically
support.
a home crowd for you.
It was, and to have Sean there, obviously fantastic. Melinda, fantastic also, and just a lot of friends and support from my local club. So had the support, and it all went to plan well, and got through the first rounds okay, and it just sort of improved. I wasn't playing great early on, but every match I got better and better, and once I got to the glass court in the great venue we were at in the centre of Antwerp, it was a great location, and obviously much prefer to play on the glass courts than the normal courts, so I was happy to get off the normal court onto the glass, because I knew that was really where my game gets the most benefit. So it was great period, and to get to the final, it was great. To play Johnny in the final, he's been my best friend on tour. We travelled together in South America. He's been in Belgium with me. I trained with him. He's really my best friend, and to play him in the final was also just a great moment. And
at this stage, Dave, very emotional, because as I remember it, he's got his parents flown over from Australia. His wife and his children have arrived from the UK.
Sure.
You've got Melinda in the other corner. You've got Sean there. You've got your friends there. So it really is an emotional setting.
It is. Like, also at tournaments, we normally room together. I help him between tournaments. He helps me sometimes if Sean's not there. So we're helping each other, and then to have to face each other, for both of us, it's the biggest occasion of our lives. But I still remember 2 minutes before we went on the court, before you brought us onto the court, out the back while the music's playing and it's black, we were joking around and sort of said, no matter what happened, let's both enjoy it, and whoever wins, and we'll have a beer afterwards and celebrate whoever wins. And that was a nice moment also. And but to win that match, like Johnny, I seen him play fantastic in the semis. He played the first semi and he beat Peter 3-love, and
That's Peter Nicol, of course.
Peter Nicol, and he played unbelievable that night. And obviously, seeing him play there, obviously I knew it was. We always have tough matches, but to see him play like that, I really knew it was going to be tough, and I had to play my best to win. And he started out 1,000 miles an hour, hitting the ball like he does, and I really just tried to hang in there. And I lost the first 2 games, but they were pretty close. They were like 15-13, 15-12, really close games. But then got a good start to the third, and probably started to slow the pace down a little bit, make him work a little bit more, make the rallies go a bit longer, and played myself into the match, and won the third quite easy, 15-5, and then fourth game was a critical one, obviously. Point for point, all the way. He got match ball first, he got 14-13, and I played an unbelievable rally where I played a really great backhand volley drop and a forehand drop, and sort of faked him thinking I was going to hit it long, and I hit a drop shot. Things I practice, and just to be able to do it at that moment, that was great to have the belief in myself. That's what Sean and myself, we practice those types of shots, and to be able to pull it out at that moment, match point down, that was. I get nervous when I watch the tape, thinking what I did, but obviously at the time I didn't worry about it. But and then
the ball never goes down when you replay it, does it?
No, but I still get nervous watching it now. But and then 14 all, he calls one, and I win the point, win the game, and from then on I really thought that's it. I'm going to win it now. And again, good start in the fifth, and I sort of had a comfy 2-3 point lead all the way in the fifth, and I think he got a bit nervous. I think he sort of realised that he was so close to winning it, and I know I've been in those situations before, and it's tough to get back onto the winning way. So I sort of wrapped it up, and in the end, I look back and I didn't. Some people say to me, "Why didn't you show so much emotion?" But it was more sort of respect to John. I think like I didn't jump up and down. I just sort of just kept quiet for the moment and shook his hand, and then obviously enjoyed it after that. So it was obviously a great period, and then. After the match, it was still nothing changed between us, and still had a great time after the match, and still remember getting on the phone and ringing Joe Shaw back in Australia, and both of us having a bit of a joke with him on the phone, and it's a great moment for him. Also, he's helped John in different periods of John's career also, so that was a great period for both of us, and a memory I'll never forget.
Coming into the 2003 year, you make the decision to base yourself in Bermuda. You take up residency, a lovely place to be, obviously. But there's a sting in the tail, because David, physically, a great Marine on the court, always have done the work, always been in great shape. But something must have happened there that really set you back. Tell me.
We flew over, Melinda, Sean and myself, a couple of the other players, for an exhibition match in Bermuda. Got on the island for one day, first time here, and got sick, went to the hospital, and it was, to cut it short, it was just my appendix needed to come out. So it was a first time in hospital. I've never been in hospital before, so rushed to the hospital. It took a lot of hours to sort out, and in the end spent 3 or 4 days in hospital. Stayed another 7 or 8 days on the island before we left. Got back to Europe, but still had problems. Back in the hospital again in Belgium for 2.5 weeks. Finally sort of got the okay, but I was really couldn't play for 4 or 5 months.
A frightening time, David. I mean, not just your normal appendicectomy. I think there was a great blood loss, and you must have been worried about your future and your career.
Yeah, it was more serious, obviously, at the time. I didn't really realise what happened. Melinda was pretty afraid after what she tells me what was really going on behind the scenes. But in the end, I got through it. It was a tough period. I lost 10 kilos in weight. I ended up not playing at all for 4 months. So that was the period before the British where I really wasn't sure how it would go. Normally in that period, like I said before, I would train hard, but couldn't train, so I really only had a few weeks on the court before the start of the season, and so it was a tough period. But again, these things happened, and we dealt with it, and we moved on, and that's what we're up to.
You were to come back. As you say, you took the break, the Christmas. You've got the titles. Really, if I may say so, you have now become at this stage the most successful squash player, with the exclusion of Jeff Hunt, that Australia has ever produced. and that's a country that has produced some great players. So you're up there with giants of the game. And you come out for the next year. You're carrying these titles. You're a wanted man. Every player wants to take your scalp. But again, it's the British Open, and you did it again.
It's a tough draw. It was only a 16 draw this year, so it was different to the 32. So it was one less match, probably, which really suited me because probably wasn't as fit and strong as I normally should be. But again, just felt really comfortable. It was a great venue, and the court really suited me, and I played really well. Played some good opponents first up, guys like Shabana, and he's a tough opponent, but you really know I won the match 3-love, and beat him 3-love anytime, it's a great win. So after that match, I sort of sat back and thought, well, geez, I'm actually got a good chance of winning this. So that gave me confidence beating him, and just again one match at a time, and had a tough one with Anthony Ricketts in the semi.
Always going to be tough with Anthony.
Yeah, he's had a great period also, and he's super fit and strong, and he really wanted to win, and we've known each other for a long time and played juniors together, so that was also nice. But in the end, I sneaked it through. I played well in patches. I didn't play well in other patches, but due to the way he was playing also. So in the end, I think my experience got me through, and because I've been there before, it was his first semi-final, so to get through to a final, that was another special moment. Again, going into the week, I wasn't really... Deep down, I thought I could, but I wasn't really telling too many people how I would do.
Do they not say that great players can perform even when they don't feel they're playing at their best? Is that possibly you've now got a reserve of strength, knowledge, and also experience?
Yes, to some degree. Obviously, it came out then. I don't want to just sit back and not do the training now and expect to come out and play. But in that period, it just seemed to work. It was a relaxed period for me, and the nice thing was I played the first semi-final. I played Anthony 1-5. Back to the hotel, had a good relax and did my preparation after the match. And then the other semi-final was, I think, starting at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. We didn't watch it, but Sean said, let's not sit here. We don't want to watch it. Let's go out for dinner. Melinda was there. Sean was there. We went out, had a great dinner, and got back to the hotel. And I didn't even realise who won the other match. And it really wasn't. That was the attitude we were taking. We weren't interested who won. We were just going to let them play and let them battle it out. And then it wasn't really till early the next morning that I found out that actually Peter did win. So I think that was a big bonus, and Sean really thought about that well, and I think that took the pressure off me. And while we were out having dinner, these two were killing themselves on the court. So
always good.
It's not so bad. Even though I like Anthony in my match was a really tough one also, but I did have a bit extra time to rest. So I think going into the final, I was just really relaxed again and got on. And I've had some major battles with Peter over the years, and I'm sure we still will. But that day, I just played my game plan, and I couldn't have played much better, and wrapped it up 3-love. And to beat Peter at 3-love anytime is great, but obviously in England for the British Open.
So looking at the record, you've already got a World Open title, 2 British Opens, world number 1 status. You've had it all. You've won 14 major tournaments on the PSA World Tour. So in your professional side, you're right there. But the great moment for you also, I know, was coming back to captain your country and to represent Australia in winning the World Teams. Not once, tell me, David, about twice. For you, it must have been a great time, especially having missed out as a 19-year-old.
The first time, like you said, a decision not to play, that was in the past, but to be able to play for Australia, it was in Melbourne, to put it in location, it was great. To be able to have our parents, all the team members, we had all our parents there. It was really one of the only time my parents got to see me play, and it was a great team, guys, Paul Price, Stuart Boswell. It was really a great team, and we got on well, and it was just a perfect week. Everything we did, the draw came out well for us, and we had Rodney Martin coaching us, a lot of experience and credibility, so it was great there, and he'd been there before, and to be captain also, to take that little bit more responsibility was a great thing for me, and I think it lift my game, and really in the semi-final and the final I played some great matches, and for the team to win it without losing a match, that was really special, and then 2 years later to do it again, Slightly different team, different coach this time, Byron Davis. Again, a lot of experience there. He was a former top 10 player, and it was just great again. We really clicked. It was in Austria. We were all just sort of hit form that week, and again, we just had a great draw. We took advantage of it, got through the first rounds easy, and then to play France in the final. I had a great match against Terry Linku. Probably started the best match. I think I was 9-love, 8-love up before I lost the point. So they're the type of things. I was first match on the court. It was my responsibility to give the team a good start and to be able to wrap the match up in 4. And from then on, I think Anthony Ricketts went on and wrapped his match up also. So to win that second one, not too many people have done that. And it's an honour to play for my country. I don't get to do it too often. It's only every 2 years. So I really look forward to it.
David, the professional world of today lives in the sponsorship world. Your sponsors have supported you for some time. Tell us a little about the help that you've received from, I know, specifically your racket sponsor, Head.
Yeah, I've been using Head rackets for 7-8 years now. It's really a great racket. I really love the racket. Hasn't changed too much also over the years. It's the same. I'm using the same shape, really, what I used at the start. And technically, it's just a great racket, and I love playing with it, and it really suits my game, I think. In one way, it's really stiff racket and a lot of power, and the touch. So I couldn't ask for anything more in my racket. So it's a great relief to know that every time I walk on, it's going to be there, and I really like it.
The 3 things you would tell any player coming into squash is make sure you've got a great racket, make sure you've great shoes, and you've got good strings, because those are the 3 things that you use. Now, you've mentioned your racket sponsorship with Head, but shoes, strings, David?
High Tech for shoes. I've been with them now for 2 years. It's a great company. When we first signed with them, we went over to England and met all the people in the office, and they're good in the fact that they want my input on the shoe. We went over there, we talked to the design people, and they really wanted to know what I wanted from the shoe, what works well, what doesn't. So from that point, it's really good that they're really taking an interest in me instead of just giving me shoes and telling me to wear them. So it's great that I have a shoe that I really like and it really feels comfortable and supports me well on the court. As far as strings, Ashway, ever since I've used Head, I've used Ashway string. The red Power Nick string really associates with me. It's a great string. Perfect example is the World Open. When I'm in the 4th game with Johnny, end of the game, my strings break. I've got to come off, change rackets, and there's certain times. Obviously, it's not the ideal time to change strings, Absolutely. But they string my rackets up before the tournament starts, and I know with that string, it's going to be exactly the same whatever racket I choose. So, little examples like that where the string really makes a difference, and obviously paid off in that example, and they're also really friendly people and really support me well over the years.
So the Dave Palmer team includes the names High Tech, Head and Ashaway.
They certainly do, and I'm sure they will throughout my squash career.
Dave, you've really won everything. You started out as that young boy, 5 years of age, on court with mum and dad. You've travelled the world as a player. You've represented yourself, your family, and your country with pride and great dignity. And now you're sitting here as one of the great players of all time, in fairness. Is the desire, is the wish, the want, the will still there for you to carry on more British Opens, more World Open titles, and another World Team event?
It's definitely still there. Obviously, we're just taking one tournament at a time. We're not thinking too much ahead at this time, but I just like to think every time I walk on court these days, I've done it for 10 years now. I really want to make sure every time I walk on court that I give it 110%, whether it's training or practice or just for a fun match. And I think if I keep that same program, it's been successful in the past. Obviously, we learn new things and we'll change little things here and there, but we're really sticking to the same sort of game plan that we've been successful with the last 3 or 4 years. And we're still going to go for all the big tournaments. Obviously, the British and the Worlds are the important ones.
For someone who's watched your career with great interest, very close proximity to you, may I just say to you that from a lot of us that have watched you, you've brought a great deal of dignity and expertise and professionalism to the game. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for the trip, David.
Thank you.